Skoda. Interesting car brand. Well, at least I think it's interesting because, well, we don't have them here in the U.S. And, well, we do have a couple trickled in here and there, older ones that have been imported. And if you didn't catch, well, this video, I would check it out. I got to drive one. It's pretty exciting. But anywho, we don't have them here, and we don't have their new cars, that kind of thing. And this is basically, we're going to learn why we don't have Skoda in the USA, even though they're in plenty of other countries. This was suggested on Discord by Heavy Metal, so I do appreciate that. And this comes to us from a channel called Bob Flavin. It will be linked down below so you can watch this whole video and, of course, check out his channel. So, yeah, let's just jump straight into it. We'll see what they say. And, you know, we do have a decent amount of brands here, but there's a lot of brands that we don't have, not just Skoda. We'll have to see why, and I have some guesses as well. Let's check it out. Oh, cool. Well, look at that. A beautiful, newer Skoda Superb in the U.S. That's a cool sight, right? Seeing the old one's one thing. Of course, that would turn some heads as well. But if anyone is like some sort of a car person, they're going to know, like, well, you can import cars from anywhere as long as they're 25 years old or older in the U.S. Seeing a new one, though, that would be pretty weird.
So here I am in Washington, D.C. Wow. Washington is, of course, the capital of the United States. And for some reason, they don't have Skoda here. So no one has seen this car before. There's only one in the whole of the country.
That's pretty weird
so it does attract
to be thinking about, right?
Because it doesn't look like an American car.
Yeah, it does look out of place. It looks awesome, but it doesn't look like other Volkswagen Group cars. Now, I know nowadays, and, you know, this car here, unlike some of the older ones, like the one I got to, you know, review, this is definitely part of Volkswagen, right? So it's, yeah, it's a sister car to a lot of Volkswagen Group cars and shares a lot of parts, yada, yada. But it does have its own unique kind of look and feel, I think. And it does look out of place. You know, we do have Audis and Volkswagens here, which would be similar. But there's a decent amount of them here. So those blend in. This is different enough to where it would be turning heads. Like, what the hell is that?
In front of me is a VW Touareg on Michigan plates. And I'm on diplomatic plates. So
oh,
I'm
wow.
on diplomatic community. You know, from Lethal Weapon. If you haven't seen Lethal Weapon, you need to watch it.
Agreed.
Now, I am entirely on the wrong side of the car.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at the plate. That is weird. I'm actually not familiar. I'm like, I love U.S. plates. I'm kind of like a license plate enthusiast. But that one, for some reason, escapes my mind. I don't remember what the diplomatic plate would look like.
Completely on the wrong side, man.
And it's right-hand drive. Now, that's weird. Maybe it's like a UK version, yeah? Because Skodas are usually left-hand drive, like I would be used to here in the U.S. Of course, you know, at least like the Czech version in surrounding countries.
Everybody else sits that side, so everybody gets a bit confused when they're overtaking.
So that's extra weird.
They look in the window at me, like, there's no driver. Where's the driver? What's going on? Why are you on that side of the car?
I like their styling. I like their logo. I like the styling. Even the newer ones, you could say, well, it's just another Volkswagen, right? Well, I like their styling better. I don't know why. I think they look better than most equivalent, you know, Volkswagens. Now, the Audis tend to look pretty nice. So I'd have to see them side by side, I guess, depending on each model to decide who's better there. But, you know, they do look different than the Audis. They look cool. And they look different than the VWs.
So I've come to Washington, D.C., and more importantly to Georgetown, and brought the Skoda Superb with me. I'm going to stop people here in the street, sit them into the car, and ask them what...
That is a beautiful Crown Vic right there. XP71 Police Interceptor. You can tell by the spotlight, of course, used as a cab. Oh, man, love them. Workhorses of America. And yes, I do have one. I love it.
Oh my God, it's a
Sorry, I get distracted easily. By cars, man.
Yeah, the steering wheel's on this side.
So you have the GPS, you've got everything, just
Oh,
the
yeah.
same as here.
Yeah, same as here. This car can park itself.
Now, I know they're just making conversation, right? But yes, it has GPS. Come on now. Of course. They have GPS in other countries.
And so it's got a little button.
Itself?
So you got a little button there. See this button here?
Yep.
Right, so that button, and that does, it searches for a space in parallel parking.
That's pretty
When it finds
crazy.
It tells you, and then it takes over the steering.
You just take your hands
Take
off
your hands
the
off
steering wheel.
let you.
You know, if anyone wants to weigh in, now I know we have cars with like somewhat halfway self-driving, you know, especially when it comes to like cruise control and stuff. Our Subaru has that. I don't know if it has the parallel parking thing. I know that was like a fad from like 10 years ago, maybe, especially in the Euro brands, right? I do remember like seeing advertisements for that even in the U.S. from like Mercedes and Audi, I think. I don't know if that's still a thing, though. I haven't seen anyone bring that up in years. To be fair, this video, I should have mentioned, is like 8 or 9 years old. So it's a newer Skoda still compared to the one I just saw. But it's not brand new. It is 10 or so years old. So that was, I guess, around the time when this would have been out. Pretty impressive technology, I suppose. Albeit it may have been clunky. I'm not really sure. I wonder if that kind of thing just died out.
You control the
If
power.
it was a fad or what.
It does all the steering into the space for you.
Wow.
And you think it's premium feeling?
Yes. Yes. My dad has a brand new BMW, and this sort of has the sleek feel of that.
It has a very like luxe feel to it. It's nicer than my car.
Yeah, it's nicer than her car, yeah.
Yeah, it's deluxe. It's really comfortable.
Plenty of space. I particularly have a lower back problem.
Yeah, this has lumbar support as well. So
Yeah.
if I push on this, you feel I can do things to the lower back part.
That's
so you
huge.
can move that around and push
Cool.
it into your spine to make it work better.
Yeah, the seats look hella nice.
It's got good headroom.
Interior
It's
just
easy
looks
to get in and out of.
pretty
I
good.
like that.
It was fun to drive. It was kind of cool too, just because there's none of these on the road.
It's a one-off.
Wow, this guy got to drive one. So that's what I've gathered, right? In learning about the brand a little bit through videos and, of course, from you guys, right? It's kind of cool. They've kind of come a long way, like some brands have done over decades, right? Like the one I drove, to me, I'm a weirdo. Like, I liked it. It was very basic, right? It was not luxurious. It was very basic, very bare bones, and functional. You know, I was told it was pretty reliable, and it was fun to drive just because it was so basic, and it was a manual, and yada, yada. So I enjoyed it for those reasons. But, of course, I've heard since 30, 40 years ago, they're not basic. Like, Skodas now are very premium and pretty impressive. And for some people that still may view them as like a lower car brand, well, that view is proven to be outdated, right? They've really come a long way and quite often impress people. And many people who purchase them say that it's a great price, but you really get a lot of bang for your buck. I mean, they're very impressive, technology-filled, you know, luxury-filled cars. They can be. So that's pretty cool to hear, right?
And a diesel, which is unusual.
This is diesel.
Yeah.
Plus, it's a diesel wagon. Like, dude, I think that's so cool because I think people tend to like what they can't have, right? A diesel wagon, I think, probably gets amazing mileage and it would be pretty durable, I'm imagining. And we don't just, that is such a rarity here. You can only get some, like, some Audi and Volkswagen wagons with diesels here. It's so rare, though. It's so rare. Many people don't opt for those. I don't think they're offered in high numbers like they are in other countries. Man, that would be so cool to me.
Diesel?
So
You
rare.
can get a petrol one. You can actually get these from a 1.4 litre petrol, tiny one, up to a 2 litre petrol.
Wow.
Do you think Skoda should go on sale in the US?
I think it would, and I think especially in like cities like DC where it's very international, people would be more keen to buy it.
Yeah.
You see a lot of European brand cars on the road here.
Yeah, a ton.
Yeah, I think if they went on sale here, of course, like any brand, like certain cars, certain brands are going to sell better in certain regions than others. I think that goes for any brand. It's interesting that this video is from 8 years ago, and they were actually asking, you know, kind of testing the waters on the streets. Hey, look at this. Have you heard of it? No. Oh, this is pretty nice. What do you think if this was sold here? I think it would do well, that kind of thing. It's interesting. I never knew this existed. It's actually a great suggestion. And like you said, it looks very nice on the road there. Obviously, fast forward 8 years later to right now, we don't have Skodas or brand new Skodas here. So clearly they haven't made that jump yet.
So the real reason behind Skoda not being here, even though VW Group are here, VW, Audi are both in this country and both for sale, although slightly different specs, most of them are petrol. The reason Skoda isn't here is because VW isn't ready to bring it here. It's not a recognized brand. It's not something that the people of America would understand. But yes, they all seem to like it. No matter who I look at on the street, every one of them has a look at the car. The big difference for the Czech Republic end of things to bring this car here would involve trying to get dealerships, trying to get everything up and running, trying to get the network up in place. So they're hoping that VW Group will be able to set up a nice little network for them and then eventually bring in the Skoda.
So that's interesting. Of course, like the business side, kind of the boring side of things, like there's always going to be limits or, you know, apprehension about like, should we bring it over there? Because of, like logistics and, you know, how are they going to establish a dealer network and how are they going to establish brand recognition in a country where probably 95% of people have never heard of the damn brand and don't know what it is. I think part of it, also where I mentioned a lot of brands that are pretty famous worldwide don't have a slice of this market. They don't bother with the U.S. And I think that's because, honestly, as a consumer, it sucks. Like car guys here complain about it all the time. We're a hard market. We have, as far as I know, like very different standards for emissions, standards for crash safety, and of course that varies from region to region, country to country. But I guess ours can be pretty annoying. But, more so than that, I think it's because a lot of brands that aren't here, the U.S. just tends to be tough on brands that aren't from here. So, Volkswagen, of course, is, from Germany. It's not from the U.S., but they're semi-successful here because they, had to go through the hoops to get established here, and they have that brand recognition now. And, part of the reason is, like, they do manufacture vehicles here. And that's, like, what the U.S. is big on is, well, at least they seem to be big on, like, they want manufacturers to come from somewhere else, but establish some sort of roots here, right? They want jobs here. They want cars to be manufactured here, or at least, assembled here. Of course, many cars, even American cars like Fords and Dodges and Chevys, have foreign parts all over the place, right? So the parts come from all over the world. They not every nut and bolt has to be made here, but it has to be all sent here and assembled here, if that makes sense. So I think that's part of it. I know that's like always a big deal. You rarely see cars anymore that are made somewhere else and shipped here. I feel like this country just is not about that. They want everyone to make stuff here, regardless if the brand is actually domestic or foreign based. Our Subaru, of course, Subaru's Japanese, right? But our Subaru, had to be assembled in, I believe it's Indiana, like right next door. Our Subaru was made in Indiana. So, that's like, if that kind of makes sense. And while this may be true, I realize it's not one of the only reasons, or certainly not the main reason, as I know there are cars that are made somewhere else and sold here, even by American brands. So it just kind of depends. And then, I don't know, I feel like there's reasons that are like here, but I can't like put it in the right words. I definitely think there's more to it, but ultimately it just comes down to, we still do have a lot of brands. We are missing a lot of brands, right? But we still do have a lot of brands competing here already, and it might just be too hard for Skoda to come late in the game, you could call it here, and try and compete against their own sister companies like Volkswagen and Audi, let alone with everyone else in, mid-size and full-size cars. That's very competitive, right? With all the Japanese cars that are so popular here, of course, people that always buy domestic brands here that are loyal to that, it might not be worth it, right? With all the logistics involved, it just might not be worth it for them to establish Skoda here. It might be too big of a task. Time will tell, and we'll have to see, even though I would love to see more brands here that I'm not familiar with, just because I think it'd be fun, and I think competition's good for existing brands and new brands. To be honest, if I was a betting man, I do not think we will see Skoda in the U.S., selling new cars. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I would love to hear your reasons, your guesses. Your thoughts on that? Any predictions? Do you think they would expand into other countries that they're not currently in, especially the U.S. being one of the big players there? Regardless, I will continue learning about brands that we don't have here because I just love it. I think it's super cool. And, you know, Skoda has been one of those brands I've really been gravitating towards. I just think it's fascinating, both new and old, and some of their cars I think are really, really cool. And yeah, it's one of those unicorn cars that we don't get here. So they're interesting to me. Something very interesting to mention as well is someone commented on this video that Skoda is a huge success story here in Australia. It was reintroduced here in 2008 and is extremely popular, maybe even more than VW. The Octavia is my favorite. And that's a good point. Australia is kind of like the U.S., as in it's a very big country and they're different, right? They're far away from Europe. They're far away from the U.S. You know, it's a very unique market as well. And Australia is actually very competitive. I think they have the most, like one of the biggest car markets when it comes to brands and models. So for Skoda to kind of just show up in 2008 and actually have a presence there, I've seen many people over the course of this channel say good things about Skoda from Australia. So I think that's very interesting. And maybe you could argue could show hope, even though it's not directly related. You know, if they did it in Australia, maybe they could do it in the U.S. But then again, it's a different story, so I'm not really sure. But I thought I'd mention that because that is a good point. And as a final little bonus footage here, I went to Auto Tempest, which searches like all the sites for used cars here, and typed in Skoda, and this goes for the U.S. and at least Canada, and it shows up with absolutely zero results. So that's kind of a shame. I'm sure if I, deep dived further into it, you might be able to find one or two here and there on the used market from, like I said, cars like I reviewed the other day, like cars that were imported, because there's got to be a few here, but just so few that I'm sure it's really, really hard to find. So I did think that was pretty funny. But anywho, yeah, that is why Skoda is not sold in the U.S. I just think that it would be, kind of bizarre, and it'd be hard as a business strategy to try and enter the market at this point. Volkswagen just must figure that the presence of themselves and Audi and whoever else is good enough at this point. So, yeah, I would love to see your comments on this, though, and how do Skoda sell these days in your country, wherever you're watching from. I would love to hear about it. Throw a like on there if you enjoyed this. Subscribe to be part of this amazing community we do have on this channel. And that's about it for this one. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker, and until next time, catch you later.